Life is so much easier when you actually understand who it is that you are. The challenge that I see so much is that people don't have this excitement for their life. To look at how are you motivating yourself through life, because most of the time I see shame being a motivator for people.
You're listening to the Soul Whispers podcast. This is your guide to break out of your fears, follow the path that lights you up, and come home to yourself. I'm your host, certified life coach and soul whisperer, Jen Sway. Before we begin, know that wherever you are in your journey, you can trust yourself. You're being divinely guided, and your life is meaningful. Now, let's start the show.
Happy summer solstice, everyone. I hope you are doing well. Welcome back to season 2 now of the Soul Whispers podcast. I'm your host, Jen Sway, and if you're new here, welcome. I'm a soul whisperer as well as a certified life coach and hypnotherapist. I combine all these tools from the spiritual side as well as the pragmatic mindset side to guide people into alignment with their true self, especially after a spiritual awakening. So this being said, this new season is all about aligning yourself with who it is that you really are so you can have the relationships that you want. If you haven't listened to episode 101, that was the opener for this season. And you're going to want to listen to that to have more insight into some of the things that I'm going to be talking about today, because that core life philosophy of virtues, values, and vision is going to show through a lot. Now, of course, we have to start with the most important relationship that you will ever have in your life, which is the relationship with yourself. And as cheesy or cliche as that might sound, you know it's true. Now, I will say, I remember doing a tarot reading with somebody who what was showing up in the cards was that they needed to really focus on their relationship with themselves, the way that they talk to themselves, the way they treat themselves, owning their desires and actually letting themselves have that permission to go after them. And he looked at me like, oh, I didn't know that you had a relationship with yourself. I know that you have relationships with other people, but I didn't know that you had a relationship with yourself. And I thought that was really interesting because none of us are really taught to reflect in that way. Most of us are raised trying to look at all of our outside relationships and then gather information from those relationships to let us know who we are. In other words, we let the outside world inform us of our internal world, and we're flipping that on its head. Just like how we talked about in that episode 101, my core life philosophy of virtues, values, and vision, we're going to flip all this around so that you can actually be aligned and have a fulfilled life. Life is so much easier when you actually understand who it is that you are. Now, I'm not one to say that life is so easy. Okay, I get it. Life happens. However, the thing that actually makes people feel like they are suffering in their life, that life is so hard, is their relationship with themselves, their internal world. And when your internal world is filled up on all the criticisms that your parents had, all of these self-doubts that you've had, all of the fears that you have, the ego drive to prove yourself or to, not take any shit or, to play it small and people please, whatever it may be, these things are the things that actually get in the way and create suffering. Because at the end of the day, you have emotions that you can feel, or you can try to suppress them in some way. You can try to minimize your feelings. You can try to get rid of your feelings and change them. And that's going to create suffering. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about your relationship with yourself and your internal world. This is really about understanding who is it that you are and finding out what blocks you from actually feeling like your true self, what blocks you from actually getting that clarity that you need in order to know if you should leave the job that you're in, if you should trust yourself to go out there into the world and be that version of you in your head that you want to be, that wears all the cool clothes, that is loud and is expressive and laughs, and the one who goes on dates and rejects people and isn't the one who's so timid about whether or not someone's going to like them, right? This is all about how to even get to that point comes from being able to understand your internal world. Your relationship with yourself, because it's so important, it's so big, there's a lot of different aspects of it. And I've really simplified it down to 2 concepts, and we're going to talk about it. The first one in this episode with your relationship with yourself with regards to your internal world. So this is how you're really going to understand who is it that you really are in that journey, what blocks you from that. And then the second part, which is going to be the next episode, is going to be talking about your relationship with yourself as far as the external world goes, how you present yourself, how you actually go about, living your life. And at the end of these 2 episodes, I really want you to come away with an understanding of being able to feel grounded, feel at peace with who it is that you are, have a pathway to experience that true self-acceptance that is so extremely liberating and freeing, and then also being able to tap into your power so that you can feel safe in trusting yourself, being courageous with making your own decisions for yourself and dealing with whatever happens after that. So let's dig into how to actually have a good relationship with yourself and what that means, what it looks like. Having a good relationship with yourself really comes down to 2 things: the thoughts that you think about yourself and the feelings that you have about yourself. If any of those things are off, you're going to experience the repercussions of that within your actions and then your results. Those are going to be the things that you see, right? I know there's a lot happening in people's lives right now, and what I hear about a lot is people wanting to understand what is their true purpose, what is it that they actually want, and also hearing a lot about people's desire to be their better self, to become their best self, their highest self, whatever you want to call it. Especially if you've had a lot of trauma in your past, you might be striving for a fully healed version of yourself without ever fully understanding what that fully healed version of yourself looks like. But the image in your head is like probably going to be, oh, you feel so free now, right? You're no longer burdened by the things that your parents had said in the past. You're no longer burdened by your past relationships. You're able to securely have and lovingly have positive relationships, whether that's romantic or friendships or with strangers. You're able to trust the universe again, right? There's all of these hopes and aspirations to be able to actually express that version of you that is, quote, fully healed. But we oftentimes skip over this internal safety that's required first. Because in order to actually sustainably create what it is that you want, you need to do so from a calm nervous system. Inner peace is extremely important because if you don't feel that sense of groundedness and rootedness within yourself, what your beliefs are, who you are, what you're trying to do in this world, right? That's going to be easily shaken up by the chaos of the world and the chaos of everyone else's emotions and whatnot. You're going to be easily influenced in that, and that's going to create this scarcity mindset. Is going to make you feel like you don't have enough time. It's going to have you feeling like you're missing out or that you're doing something wrong, that you're behind, right? Because you have not accepted where it is that you are and the pathway that you have chosen for yourself. The thing that's going to block you from being your true self, from feeling that peace, from being authentic in the way that you live your life is shame. Now, if you already know that you have some shame work, or maybe you've been doing personal development work, maybe you've worked with a coach, maybe you've worked with a therapist, and you've uncovered that there are some parts of yourself that you're ashamed of and you're working through that, that's awesome. Okay, that's awesome to know and to identify. However, when most of us start, it doesn't come through from a lens of shame. It comes through as a lens of, I'm not good enough. Let's say you think you want a family, right? And you want a family because you think you're going to be happy then. And because you want a family, you're thinking of all the things you need to do in order to create that, right? Maybe you're thinking, I need to make more money. I need to find a partner. I need to make sure that I'm healthy and whatnot. Okay, so you go through all these criteria in your head that's going to make you good enough to have a family. And then you're seeing all the things that you're not. Maybe you feel frustrated. Maybe you feel defeated or disappointed. Maybe you feel motivated. Maybe you feel angry. Whatever it is that starts to get you going so that you can start moving towards your desire. Yet the thing is, as you're trying to move along that pathway, it's being created from a place of shame. It's being created from a place of, you're not there yet. You're not good enough yet. That's not who you truly are. So when you go on that pathway, let's say you meet somebody that you like, but you still have all this past trauma from the past about the way that you look. Maybe people have made fun of you for your weight, or for you being Asian, or for where you came from, the way you speak. And because of that, you are now insecure about it. And the second you get closer to somebody, you push them away because you're afraid that at some point they're going to see that you're actually not enough for them, that you're not good enough, that they're going to start wanting more from you and you're not going to be able to deliver, and they're going to want to leave you. So then you start going in your head about all of this stuff and you start thinking, okay, well, I got to work on me first, right? So you stop dating. You think, I need to heal myself fully. I need to love myself before anyone else can love me. And guess what? That's also a never-ending journey. So when are you actually good enough to be loved? When are you actually lovable enough? When are you actually healed enough to love another human being and be able to fulfill these dreams? Questionable, right? There is no right answer to that. The thing to notice here is, why is it that you're not good enough right now? Why is it that you're not worthy of this right now? Why is it that this isn't available to you right now? And when you discover those thoughts, asking yourself why that is so true to you. And when you find those statements, when you find the belief, for example, that I just need to make more money before I'm able to have a family, if that feels like a 10 out of 10 true, like the sky is blue, then you're not going to even be able to own that desire for a family, because you might not feel good enough to do so. If you feel inadequate because of that thought, you're not going to be able to create it. I want to share with you my story of how I really de-shamed myself and got to a place of genuine self-acceptance and self-love. And trust me, this has been a long-ass journey. And I have found the most effective tools for it, as well as been able to guide other people along this journey so that they can have these compound returns on their investment when they work with me over months, over years, to now be in places where they are so liberated from these past judgments and criticisms and regrets that they had in their lives, imposter syndrome, anxiety, and fears, hypervigilance. They're able to free themselves out of that now because of this type of work. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, oh, all it takes is 6 months to completely transform a lifetime of self-beration and trauma and not good enough and all these wired patterns. No. And also, there is so much you can accomplish within 6 months, within a month, within an hour, if you give yourself that space to actually show up fully and implement what it is that you learn. And because we're on the topic, I'm just going to tell you that right now, there are 2 ways to work with me. You can do a one-on-one session with me, just a single tarot-based life coaching session, where we're going to be using the spiritual wisdom of tarot as well as the pragmatic guidance of life coaching to help you come to clarity and confidence, as well as connection within your true self, to guide you into alignment. It's a 45-minute session, and if you want to know more, the links are going to be down below. You can also do this with a partner that you have, that you've been with for at least a year, and do a couples reading. You can also double the time as an option if you want to go even deeper. If you know things like your human design or your astrology and you want to use that in your session as well, there's a place to put that on the booking, so that when we do go through this guidance for how to be in alignment with yourself, whether that's your career, relationship, your health, we'll also be able to take into account your human design. If you want to experience hypnotherapy and go back to the root causes of why it is that you believe what you believe and why you feel still like an imposter or anxious or depressed or not good enough, even though you've done all this work already, even though you have all this awareness, you've read all the books, you've listened to all the podcasts, but yet you still can't implement it, and instead of blaming yourself for it, actually now have that support to clear out the subconscious, then hypnotherapy is going to be a great option for you. Because in hypnotherapy, we start off with a single session that is a deep life coaching session to understand what are your actual goals, what are the challenges that you're experiencing, and how is that showing up for you, so that when we do the hypnotherapy session, that gets to be all let go of and then rewired into the actual beliefs, the actual self-concepts, the truth that you want to experience in your day-to-day, the thoughts you want to think, the feelings you want to experience, and really inviting them to root into being your new normal. Both of those options are available right now, and you can go to the link in the description box to book a consultation with me for hypnotherapy, or to just book your single session for tarot. Now, if you want to experience both and go even deeper with it, have a longer container in which you can experience transformation in multiple areas of your life, or deal with a deep-rooted issue, something like depression that you've had for most of your life, or anxiety, and you really want to shift every area of your life, I do offer one-on-one life coaching for 6 months at a time, and these spots are only open once a year. So the applications for that is going to be opening at the end of this year, and we're going to be kicking off with an in-person retreat in December of 2024 to start your own coaching journey that's going to include 3 months of hypnotherapy, as well as life coaching and tarot, to help guide you into alignment starting January 2025. More information of that is definitely going to be coming out soon, so make sure you're following me on my Instagram page at Jen the Soul Whisperer. You can join my newsletter as well. It's just going to be in the link of my bio, and you'll get the notification when all the waitlists open. Now let's get back into the episode. The way that my journey has moved from de-shaming myself to being able to accept where I am now and even love myself and experience that on a day-to-day level comes from the very beginning of how I even became a coach. And this is really starting from my health. So if you don't know, I started off as a personal trainer and holistic health coach, and I specialize in helping women who struggle with disordered eating as well as body image issues to make peace with their food as well as love their bodies and become intuitive eaters. That was all because I struggled with that shit. I remember calorie counting when I was in middle school. I used to weigh myself all the time. And in high school, it got so bad that I literally lost my period for months. I was 12% body fat, which, by the way, is the minimal, essential body fat for a woman to have. I was working out every day for at least an hour a day. And all I could think about was food. All I could think about was what I was eating, how many calories were in it, how much fat was in it, how much protein was in it, how many carbs were in it, how did I look, and all of those things that I literally couldn't focus on anything else. I was barely present in school. I was still able to get by just fine. I had good grades, but if I wasn't thinking about what was a task at hand, I was thinking about food, I was thinking about my body. And at the time, I thought I just wanted to look better and I would be happier, right? But that is just the external expression of this internal shame that I was experiencing for so much of my life. I had been sexually assaulted. I was a perfectionist. I always felt like I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't performing well enough in school or in golf. And I would always be yelled at or criticized or judged by my mom every single day when I was getting home. I just never felt like I measured up. I was very self-conscious, yet at the same time, you probably would have thought I was decently confident. And the reason is because I didn't have any self-esteem. You can be confident, but without the self-esteem, because they're two different things. Confidence is that ability to do the thing that you say you're going to do, right? To be able to speak with conviction, like all the things that you would think confidence looks like, that actually doesn't have to be rooted in you actually feeling good enough. Because self-esteem deals with your sense of worthiness, your sense of deservingness, your sense of being lovable and being enough. While confidence can be self-confidence, where it can just be the thoughts that, yeah, you can do something, or maybe you have past experience of actually accomplishing something, and that gives you confidence to do it again, right? But just because you have the confidence that you are competent at a certain task, a skill, a job, a relationship, whatever it is, does not mean that you actually going to feel worthy of it. That's why people can have imposter syndrome. That's why people sabotage their relationships. That's why people are always vying for validation with their partner, even though they feel confident in, the way that their relationship is going or the way that they're showing up. They still question themselves internally because they don't have that self-esteem aspect. And that was no different for me. I felt that all throughout high school. I felt that in college. Even before I got into personal development, that's why I didn't feel like I needed any help really, was because I didn't think that I had an issue with confidence. I didn't think I had an issue with self-worth. I just thought I needed to be better. I just thought I had a really good work ethic. I just wanted everything to be perfect. I was just a high achiever. I was just somebody who wanted more. I was just somebody who was probably going to be better than everyone else because I was such a high performer. And that ego-driven desire to be better was literally the symptom of low self-esteem. What I see time and time again, because I work with so many people who are perfectionists, especially women, is that the perfectionism does not come from the desire to be better. The perfectionism comes from a place of wanting to decrease their shame. And you can never out-hustle, outwork your self-esteem. So with my body, with food, that was the first relationship I really had to heal. Within your relationship with yourself too, you can break it down into your relationship with your food and body. You can break it down to your relationship with money, your relationship with love itself, like the concept of love. It can be familial or friends or family. All of these things, like expectations that you have for it, what you think it means, how you know, what is the feeling, what is the action, and how do you know if you have enough of it? How do you know if you don't have enough of it, that you're giving enough? All of those questions, right? It all comes from that self-reflection. And so for me, when I was really getting to the heart of why I was doing what I was doing, right, I peeled away from the vision for why I was working out so much and counting my calories and weighing myself all the times. And I found out that the reason why I was doing all those things was because I thought it would make me happier. Because I thought that once I got to this body, I was going to be able to feel great about myself, right? That I wouldn't be self-conscious anymore about the way I looked, that maybe I would be even more lovable, that the guys that I had crushes on would actually like me back, that my mom would stop getting on me about my weight or my looks. that things would just be easier for me because I had this great body. And the funny thing is, I had the body, but I couldn't see it, right? Because at that point, I had like a bit of body dysmorphia where I literally just couldn't accept the way that I looked. I just always thought I looked fat. Or at least even when I took a photo and I could see that I was skinny, I felt fat inside. Because feeling fat is not about you actually being fat or looking fat. You having that I feel fat moment or I feel ugly moment is really about you feeling inadequate. So when I realized the goal wasn't to just have this body that I wanted, but to actually feel the way I wanted to feel and think nice thoughts about myself, because it would just be so nice to not criticize myself all the time and beat myself up and think about food all the time. Like I just felt like it was a waste of time. I got to that point. I deleted the calorie counting app on my phone and I started to eat a little bit more freely. I started to let myself just experience life again, to experience a little bit more joy again, to experience desire for food and actually fulfill that desire. Because at that time, I was suppressing even my appetite. I was suppressing like, no, you're not hungry, you're actually thirsty, or like everything was just whack. I could go deep into it, but I'm not going to. Just know that it was whack. And the two things that really helped me make the shift was one, going to California as a senior in high school to go check out schools. And I had a tour at USC, I had a tour at Berkeley. And when I went to USC, we were in LA, right? Which was a mecca for food. And I really wanted to just be able to experience LA, experience the food there without the worries of calories. That's what made me delete this calorie counting app that I literally had for like 5 years. And I was religiously using every single day because I wanted this experience. So when you zoom out of just this one example, right, think about it for yourself. When you have something in your life that is coming up, that is so exciting to you, that nothing else matters other than you want to make this a great experience for yourself, you're going to change the way that you behave. Think about like when you know that you're going to go on vacation and you're so excited because you've always wanted to go to this place, you've been, burnt out at your job and you're just ready to leave, you're ready for vacation. You're not thinking about all the other stresses that are going on in your life right now. You're just going to start preparing for that trip. You're going to like be looking online at restaurants there. You're going to be packing your clothes, thinking about what you're going to wear. You're going to be, talking to all your friends about it, right? Your life adjusts to your excitement for this thing, hence making the rest of your life more exciting, right? Because you're anticipating this thing. The challenge that I see so much is that people don't have this excitement for their life. And if there's no excitement for your life, it's not because you don't know what's going to be exciting to you or what sounds fun to you. The challenge is you actually allowing yourself that permission to feel like you're deserving of it, to feel like it's okay for you to do this thing. Because even for me, I remember at that moment, it was a battle within my mind to figure out, is it okay for me to just let this go? Is it okay for me to actually take a week off of, calorie counting, of working out, of whatever, and just let myself be here, right? Or do I need to like figure out like how I'm going to work out here, or what foods am I going to eat here? Like, how am I actually going to go about this? And that when I finally made that decision and committed to just like, no, I'm actually just going to let myself be, it was the most liberating, exciting thing ever, because then I could just look forward to my trip. Now, the other piece that helped me shift into becoming an intuitive eater and to accepting my body more was becoming vegan. Because now this was something that was actually a value of mine. And I've talked about this in the previous episode, how veganism really helped me understand what my virtues are and who I really was. Because of that, now I had a core to operate from where it wasn't just about my body and the way it looked. It was actually because this felt in alignment to me and my body was just the vessel that it was moving through. So food for me then became a part of self-expression. And I think especially coming from my culture, where in Chinese culture, and I think a lot of Asian cultures, food is such a big thing. Like it's the place that all family gathers. Like when you watch Asian dramas versus American dramas, it's so centered around meals and food and, cooking for others or going out to eat and spending time with friends and family over a good meal. Like sharing a good meal is so important. And that's how so much love is expressed. You can communicate a lot through just the food that you're eating and then like the food that you're preparing for yourself. So me getting to this place now where I wasn't using food as a tool anymore, where I was thinking, that food was the enemy, that there was good foods or bad foods or right foods or wrong foods for me, but just seeing food as food and then actually having this rootedness in, well, I don't believe in eating animals because this goes into who I actually am as a person and what I believe is right or wrong. But I actually think that there's energy to food, right? Now it's not about good or bad food. Now it's things like fries and ice cream aren't bad foods, they're just foods. And how do they actually make me feel? Do I want to feel that way? How much of me eating ice cream is going to get me to the point where I feel satisfied because I gave myself something that I wanted to eat versus it actually makes me feel like crap and I don't actually want to eat that much, right? So it was a lot of deconditioning around what I was even labeling as good or bad or right or wrong. And that goes for that entire like relationship with health and fitness and food. Like working out is good versus not working out is bad, and eating carbs is bad and eating protein is good. And you just start to question all of these things where you're taking it away from just the science side of things, where I think I was leading really heavily in. And I know a lot of people who come to me love working with me because they like that I can bridge the spiritual and the pragmatics. Like I have one foot deeply rooted in science and I love that. My background's in psych. I went to college and all this stuff to be able to learn more about this. I have all these certifications for that reason. And at the same time, there is no replacement for good old fashioned fuck around and find out for yourself, right? Like your own life experience, and especially in something like health and your purpose and fulfillment and happiness and joy and love. These are such individual things that you can only feel for yourself that no one else can for you. So you have to go and live out your own life and test out different things and check in with your body to actually feel what is going to give you those feelings that you want. And let me put it this way. It took me from about 2015, 2016, when I decided that I wanted to have a better relationship with myself and food and not just try to get to this goal, not just try to get to this vision, right? But actually root back into the virtue of how do I want to feel and value my health in a more holistic way. From that intention, it took me until 2018 to actually feel like I fulfilled that. So that's about 3 years in that process that it took for me to actually finally get to a place where I could accept my body and like myself, be able to eat more intuitively. If you really want to go to where did I truly just like let go of anything, like that, I think 2018 was where I had like the biggest shift, which is what drew me into becoming a holistic health coach and personal trainer with those specialties in 2019. In 2020 is when I really kicked off those last remnants of thoughts about food and worries and anxieties about my body, the way I looked, like how much I weighed and all that stuff. That was when I kicked off the last remnants of that in 2020. So you can think about this as like this took about 4 to 5 years for that process. Okay. After that whole de-shaming process, I realized I still had a lot of shame around relationships, around my own lovability, because I had so much of these thoughts that I had to do more in order to be loved. And at the time, I had entered in a really healthy relationship. And at the time, we thought we were soulmates. And I genuinely think we were at that time point for where we are in our lives. But, your soul evolves, soul contracts end, and you move on. So from that relationship, though, I saw a lot of things being mirrored back to me. It was a great dojo for me to really see all these things that needed to come up to the surface that was ready to be released. A lot of shame, a lot of discomfort, a lot of expectations and rules that I had for myself as well as for other people as far as relationships go. And if you're familiar with attachment theory, for me, it was a lot of disorganized attachment, right? On one hand, I was anxious and wanted to know that my partner was going to be there for me, that they loved me, that they validate me. And on the other hand, I didn't want to get too close because I also feared being enmeshed with somebody. With COVID happening though, and us living together so quickly and you having to be in your own pods, right? We spent 3.5 years living together, being in relationship together, and that revealed a lot to me. It revealed to me things that I didn't want to see, that I didn't think I actually struggled with until I saw it for myself, where it was easier for me to get defensive and stonewall than to have a conversation, even though I knew that having a conversation didn't have to be some scary thing. I remember being able to really see when we would get in arguments, the pathway of like how it could go well and how to actually be a good communicator to say like, hey, this is how I feel, or this is what I'm thinking, or can we take a break? I could see how like even apologizing, like there is this pathway that we could take that would be good. And then there is the pathway that was just normal for me, that was familiar with me, that felt like better to me, to relieve it, of just be able to yell or to stonewall or to leave the conversation, whatever it would be. Like, and I would just take that path, even though I could see it in that moment. I just felt like I couldn't decide to do that. It felt almost cringy. It felt almost like weird. It felt like, oh, who do you think you are to be able to do that? Like, that's just not, that's not you. That feels weird. That feels contrived. That feels inauthentic to go down this quote healthier route. And I know this isn't just me. I've heard this time and time again, where the healthier route, whether that's in your food or your relationships or your career, with your money, spending habits, all these things, it feels out of alignment in some way. And because it feels weird, it feels uncomfortable, you make it mean that it's not you. And so because of that, that's what stops you from that growth even more. However, if you get to the root of it, it's actually an intolerance to this new version of you. It's an intolerance to actually accepting that you can be somebody who healthily communicates. It is discomfort around leaving what you know, which is, that this is your trauma response, that this is just who you have been, this is just how you've always reacted. It's a discomfort from leaving that and feeling unsafe in leaving that to explore this new way where you don't even know if that's actually going to help. You don't know if you're going to get the reaction that you want to get, but at least the other way is predictable. And what helped me a lot through that time was spiritual work and rooting into my shadow side. I tried doing therapy again. That was not helpful for me. If it was helpful for you, that's great. I'm happy for you. However, for me, I've tried therapy multiple times now throughout my life, and I just know for myself, with the awareness that I have, it's way too easy to intellectualize everything in a therapy session. And I needed to get back into my body. I needed to do things for myself to co-regulate. I needed to go on a journey of self-regulation for myself, of rooting back into nature, of going for walks for myself, of proving to myself that I can still be there for me, that I still love me, that I can be in my own quiet space and still have positive thoughts about myself, to still feel good about myself, to still feel deserving of love for myself. And so that was the journey I went through. I went through a journey of essentially living my fucking life, and that was extremely healing for me. I needed to leave that relationship and stop feeling guilty for this relationship and this person not necessarily doing anything wrong, but me wanting something different, me knowing that I wasn't my best self in that it wasn't bringing out the best version of me, leaving that relationship so that I could find this new evolution of myself that I wanted to come through. And at the end of the day, whether or not I could or could not have done that in that relationship, I just didn't want to. And that's good enough. The only way I was even able to get to that place is because of the de-shaming work I had done before through life coaching, through looking at my thoughts one by one, session after session, week by week, within my business, within myself, and how much self-worth I had tied to how much money I was making, how much self-worth I had tied to how productive I was, how much I beat myself up for not finishing a task that I felt like I needed to finish, for not meeting a deadline, and then having to learn brick by brick, day by day, thought by thought, feeling by feeling throughout every week, every month, every year, to be more kind, more compassionate towards myself, to stop thinking in that way and reroute my brain into much more productive ways of thinking, which was things that were going to actually make me feel settled in the present, that was going to make me focused on what I did accomplish and celebrate myself and be able to feel like I was capable, like I was successful, like I was a good person, like I was productive. And because I was rooted in those self-concepts now, it was much easier for me to make these bigger decisions within my life, with my relationship, to shift. Same thing happened when I was shifting careers from personal training to life coaching to spirituality and tarot now, and being able to own each iteration of myself without thinking, oh, this is so woo, or people are going to judge you, or people aren't going to understand this, or whatever. I had to go through that de-shaming process myself over and over and over again to be able to now meet myself where I was, and just know who I was in each iteration did not change the virtues that I had, but it was just a shift in the vision. I still valued the same things of my relationships and myself and my health, my business and love, all these things. I still valued the same things, but it needed to be expressed differently. And so it allowed me to detach from the vision for how I thought life should look like, or where I should be, or what stage of the relationship I should be in, how much money I should be making. It helped me detach and depersonalize the external world from my own value, from my own worth, thereby creating much more love for myself, creating so much more integrity in my actions, because now it didn't have to be rooted from this short-term scarcity mindset or from proving myself in some way or to try to gun for a goal in the short term. It actually allowed me to find the most sustainable way for me to live and to love myself, others, and the world around me. One of the craziest, most surprising, and most incredible things that have come out of de-shaming myself and doing this work has been my relationship with my mom shifting. And I owe pretty much all the credit to hypnotherapy and to spirituality. Life coaching too, because life coaching is what allowed me to get to a place where I could see that it was worth me investing in things other than my business. I think I had this thing for a while where I was like, okay, it needs to make me money, right? Like me investing 5 figures into something, 4 figures into something, whether that's a coach or a program, it needed to help me in my business in some way. And I valued a lot of the personal development aspect of it, but it was still like personal development in order to get to a certain place, right? Like it's good to invest in this so that I can learn more about myself, create more awareness to my patterns, and decondition myself so that I can make more money in my business. Life coaching, spirituality, and hypnotherapy all helped me get to a place where I could just value getting to know myself and this personal development, the satisfaction that I wanted to have in my life in itself. Without it having to produce any external result for anybody else, I was able to find value in it for myself because I valued myself. Because I valued that by the end of my life, I don't want to get to a place where I regret anything, that I wish that I knew myself better, that I hadn't answered the question of, am I happy or who am I? I wanted to be able to get to a place where, because I know those answers now when I'm in my early 20s, I'm able to then create an entire life that fulfills me instead of the opposite way where I'm stuck in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where I'm trying to vie for safety and maybe I get up to belonging, maybe I get up to that love, but I never get to that level of self-actualization. I'm like, fuck no, all of those things are needs. And for me, in the way that I'm designed, in the way that I am as a person, I need that self-actualization first, because otherwise life wouldn't have made sense. Me having been deeply suicidal and like very depressed for over a decade of my life, and getting to a place where I was 18, I was ready to just end it or have to figure out like, all right, I have to want something in life. I have to figure out what is worth living for, or else this just isn't it, and getting to that place for myself. That was the deep catalyst that was needed for me to go on this path of fulfillment, to go on this path to figure out my purpose, and my purpose really just being me, right? What made me happy? What brought me pleasure? What brought me joy? What brought me gratitude? What was it that was in my life that was actually important to me, that I wanted to prioritize versus what everyone else told me? So that being said, it was so much of this journey of de-shaming. And like I'll talk about in the next episode of the shoulds, it was also that process of not asking what should I do, but what do I want to do? And you can only really get to that place where you value yourself, your desires, and you put weight into those things. Just like how if you had a kid or you had a friend that you loved or a partner and they said that they wanted Thai food for the night or something, you'd be like, okay, let's go get that, right? But for yourself, if you say you want something and you're like, oh, but that's not really important, or you don't have the money for that right now, or no, but we have this other thing and it's close enough and you should just like be okay with that. That's not as loving, right? That's not as caring. That doesn't feel as good, but we treat ourselves that way. And why? So let me go back to how my relationship with my mom has shifted so much because of this. In hypnotherapy last year, I realized I was carrying around this subconscious belief that I am a burden, and I've been carrying that for my entire life. And that came from my parents knowing that they are immigrants from China, that they came here with the 2 suitcases, the $500 in their pocket, that whole story. And then was somehow able to build an entire life where my sister and I were able to both go to college, fully paid for. They both bought us cars, fully paid for, and we were able to graduate with no debt, right? Like, how are they able to do that just financially? And at the same time, being able to see all throughout the journey how much they stressed about money, how much my mom stressed about it, and feeling like I was just not good enough, that I was a burden, where something like golf I didn't like doing and I was pushed into it, and me complaining about it, me not wanting to do it, and then my mom using we've spent so much money on this, or it's expensive sport, you're ungrateful for this, using that as a reason for me to continue to guilt trip me, right? So I felt so much guilt, for so long that it turned into shame that there was something wrong with me. And that was all coming from this perspective that I'm a burden. So no wonder by the time I was 18, I felt like unaliving myself because I was a burden to the people who are closest to me. I felt like a burden to the world because environmentally, I was like, humans are the worst. We do all these terrible things and we're ruining the environment. And I just felt like a burden to my friends because I had feelings, I had thoughts, and I wanted to share. And, I needed space held for me, and they were always so good with it, but I just never felt like I was deserving of it, right? And then you become a burden to yourself. You're like, oh my gosh, I have a body, I have a period, I'm hungry, I have these things, I have desires, I have goals, and like everything becomes a burden. So life becomes extremely heavy. And me going through hypnotherapy and having the sessions that I had, it was just extremely illuminating to me and freeing because it was the most effective tool to help me rewire those thoughts, to not just see what was the actual cause instead of guessing like from a therapy perspective or guessing why I was feeling the way I felt. I actually had the answer because I was able to go back to the root causes, go back to these scenes from my childhood and see what were the feelings that were buried alive, because a feeling that's buried alive never dies. And I was able to see what were the beliefs that were created from when I was a child, from when I was dependent, right? From when I didn't know better, and was able to release those things to create space now for my subconscious to invite in these new beliefs, these new self-concepts. And the thing that I really shifted to from I'm a burden was to I'm a blessing. And if you think about the way that I got to that, right? It was from really saying, what is the opposite of a burden? Because for a while, I couldn't even think of it. I was just like, that, I don't know, it's neutral, but it's actually to even go above that, where you are a blessing. Just as a child being born, right, you can see as all the responsibilities being such a burden to you, but people will also congratulate you and say like, oh, what a blessing, what a miracle, right? That you are a miracle. Same thing with getting a promotion or making more money. You can always see these things as added responsibilities and so much more burden, so much more time that's needed on you. Or you can see it as a blessing that you get to make more money. You get to have more responsibility. You have to have more power and sway. So at the end of the day, it's about your perspective. And that helped me separate so many thoughts and expectations that my mother was placing on me and be able to release them with more love and more compassion for her and maybe what she's internally experiencing that makes her think and act in these ways, and also be able for me to root even deeper into my dreams and my desires and how I feel in the moment, to accept those things with so much more love and grace for myself. The thing that shame cannot hold up to time and time again is the truth. And when it comes to going through this de-shaming process, you're going to need to be a cheerleader for yourself. You're going to need to be a witness to yourself. Because just as I, throughout all of these examples, could not have gotten to a place where I was able to accept myself and love myself without first being able to advocate for what it is I actually wanted instead, you also cannot go from deep shame to incredible, unshakable self-love. It's just not like that. However, I will say hypnotherapy really helps. Regardless of the pathway you choose, it's going to be a process. And it's all going to come from doing the little things that add up that nobody wants to tell you about. Because everyone's going to want to tell you, oh, you can do it like that, and it's so fast, and like, here's this 5-step process, and here, just buy this course. And the thing is, all those things can actually be helpful to help broaden your perspective, but have you actually been able to implement it? Because the truth is, it is through the day-to-day work, the week by week, the month by month work, where you catch yourself having a self-deprecating thought and you shift it, right? You change it, you actually give it the truth, because shame cannot live up to the truth, right? If the shameful thought is that no one will love you, that you're going to die alone, or if you don't make 100K in your business, then you are an utter failure and you're going to be laughed at and not taken seriously, right? If those are going to be the beliefs that you hold to yourself as true, then nothing else is actually going to be able to come in and replace those truths. No matter how hard you try to change it, no matter how much you want to believe something else, no matter how resonant somebody else saying that those things aren't true is, you're not going to be able to receive that because you don't feel that it's true. So it comes from actually being able to have a witness for yourself and building that into your conscious mind and subconscious mind to pick out, hey, actually, whenever my brain wants to give me these thoughts, ring an alarm. Put my attention to it, Because when you have that attention to these self-deprecating thoughts, you get to be like, actually, those aren't true. What is true is this, right? What is true is that you're in the process of healing. What is true is that you are on the path to making that money. What is true is that you are lovable and that you have done a lot in your life already to be able to deserve the success that you have. And chances are you can probably create more, right? It's these little laddered thoughts that take you rung by rung to the big thought, to the big belief, to the love, to the immaculate self-concept that you think that you want so much, right? It's those little step-by-step thoughts every single day, every single week, every single month that's going to add up to build to that. When you have a witness for this abuse that is going on in your own mind, where you are self-abusing, where you are self-flagellating, where you are self-deprecating, and you stand up and you defend yourself, you defend that inner child, you defend that version of you that knows that that is not true, you give space now to discover what the truth is. And that truth is always going to be that you are lovable, that you are worthy, that you are enough, and that what you want is available to you, that you can go and create it. And remember, there's two types of people in the world: the ones who need evidence to believe, and the ones who believe and then create the evidence for it. This is your calling card to be the latter. The last thing I will say on this is a challenge for you to look at how are you motivating yourself through life, because most of the time I see shame being a motivator for people. Shame being the motivator for why people want to lose weight, make more money, get into a relationship, or change themselves in any way, is because they feel ashamed about how it is that their own brain works, that they have ADHD or that they're autistic, ashamed of the way that they look, that they aren't the beauty standard, or that they aren't tall enough or whatever, and they need to compensate for that. Shame for how much money they make because they feel inadequate and they're unable to provide the lifestyle that they want for their family or whatever it might be. And if you're seeing shame as the motivator to get you to try to do more, to be more productive, that you should do more now, that you should change yourself, then just notice how that feels in your body, because it is not going to be a sustainable form of motivation. I have another episode on this that you can scroll down. I forget what it's called, to be honest. It's probably something around perfectionism, but I talk about the different forms of motivation that you can create. And shame being that really gross, like polluting, like lighting coal on fire type of energy, versus clean energy is love, right? Motivating yourself from a place of love. When you want to cook your partner a breakfast because you love them and you want to see them smile. When your dog's asking for you to take them out for a walk because you realize, oh my gosh, they've been inside all day and I want to give you some love, right? Instead of, oh my gosh, I'm a terrible dog parent and I need to take you out for a walk right now, right? Love is such a stronger motivator. But in between then, there's two more. There's responsibility as well as desire. And responsibility is going to be that step up from shame, where you realize, oh, you don't have to be ashamed of your body to realize that you just can't escape your body. And you're responsible for fueling it the way that you need to fuel it in order for it to run effectively, in order for it to operate in the way that feels most efficient to you to get to where you want to be. And then that next step above that, desire, you being able to move away from shame, where now there's no longer all these fears that are in the way that is stopping you from hearing what it is that your intuition wants, that your soul wants for you. But you being able to own that you want to feel more creative, that you want to feel more free, that you want to be out in nature more, feel more love, laugh more, all these different things. And you own those desires for the experiences that you want to have. To, for example, for me, right, having that experience where I wanted to go to LA and just eat food without thinking about the calories, me just feeling that freedom to eat food and enjoy my life, that being the desire that really fueled me to be able to change my behavior. And from that step of above that, the love, that unconditional love for myself and unconditional positive regard, being able to motivate me and fuel me in my day-to-day, because I get to feel so grateful for my life, because I get to feel love and appreciation for myself in my life, the people around me, the things that I have, and the things that I want. That presence that you have in your life can be one of the most motivating things that you experience, because when you stop chasing, when you stop trying, when you actually root into you being you, you experience in your body how it feels to be at peace with yourself. You just want to feel that all the time. And that is the key here. That is what I want for all of you, is to feel so much peace, so much purpose, so much power in your life, in your present day, every single day, no matter where you are, that because your life now can be so good, it inspires you to continue creating a life that feels good to you. And with that, friends, that wraps up this episode. I hope you enjoyed it and it shed some perspective on you on how to manage your own shame through my story, as well as these guiding points to bring you into alignment with your true self. if you want to work with me, all the links are going to be down in the description box below. And with that being said, I'll see you for the next episode. Until then, stay well.